Greetings, Otaku Faithful. Thank you for joining me again this week. Once again, it's Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief, and I'm here to bring you all my Smallville Season 2 review right here on Otaku Assemble! Weekly, as always, I'm here to bring you the latest in this week's Smallville Season review. But before I jump into this week's review, I want to first and foremost thank you all who have pledged to my comic book miniseries Totems on Kickstarter.com. Yesterday, I reached my goal of $2,000, and I want to thank you all who have pledged so far. But with that being said, there is still less than 11 days left on the Kickstarter project. So for those of you all who have yet to pledge, feel free to do so. Link will be annotated on the video above. And as I mentioned, the $2,000 goal is my absolute minimum. Absolute minimum. I can always raise more. I just couldn't raise less. So, for those of you all who have yet to pledge, but you still want to, feel free to do so. The link annotated above. And for those of you all who would like to pledge but are unable to, feel free to share the link to spread the word. I can use every cent and any help I could possibly get. So, I want to thank you all for that. Second thing I want to mention, just a brief warning. I apologize ahead of time if this review comes off as a little bit incoherent at times. I've been writing all day, and it takes its toll on you. So I apologize ahead of time if that happens. Cool? So with that being said, now let's jump into the review. Now, Smallville Season 2. First and foremost, I want to go ahead and tackle the cast. Now, few changes to the cast for Season 2. Eric Johnson has left the series as a season regular. I believe he only appears in 1 or 2 episodes this season as Whitney Fordman. That's pretty much due to Whitney being written out of the show at the end of Season 1 when he enlisted and went overseas. And new addition, a new regular, John Glover, who plays Lionel Luthor. He's been promoted to season regular for Season 2. And 2 guest stars that I want to mention for Season 2. Of course, super excited when I saw them in Season 2. Christopher Reeves and Terrence Stamp. Guest star in Season 2. Christopher Reeves, of course, portraying Dr. Virgil Swan. And Terrence Stamp providing the voice for Jor-El throughout the series. So they make their debuts in Season 2. Now, okay, let's talk about the new characters, their role in the seasons, guest stars, their roles. Did that already. Okay, good points and bad points of the season as a whole. Okay, good points of Season 2. With Season 2, this is when we start getting to the overarching storylines. If you all will recall in my Season 1 review, I mentioned that one of the bad points of Season 1 was that because the season was very episodic, every episode had like a different story in it, you know, a self-contained story. And that and the fact with their Freak of the Week motif that they were using throughout Season 1, you know, that didn't work out so well in Season 1. It was one of the bad points. But with Season 2, they start making up for that with overarching stories. We still have episodes that have self-contained stories, don't get me wrong. There are a few episodic, well, there are several episodic episodes in this season, but a lot of the episodes start, you know, picking up with directly after where the last one left off. And they all start contributing to the overarching storyline in Season 2. And this will only get better with the following seasons because Seasons 3, 4, and 5 especially kind of step the game up as far as the overarching storylines are concerned. Let me see. Bad points about Season 2. Are there any bad points for Season 2? Well, okay, one of the bad points about Season 2, which I guess I'll just go ahead and address this now, and I might reiterate it when I get into the characters. The teen angst kind of stack up in season 2. Because in season 2 they really try to go forward with this love triangle between Clark, Lana, and Chloe. And in season 1 you could see them start setting up for it, but it wasn't as jarring as it is in season 2, because by season 2 they kind of hit the ground running with that. I mean, they pick that up right, I think by episode, no, in the premiere they pick it up right after where they left off of it with the season 1 finale. And yeah, it kind of only gets worse from there. So that's one of the bad points I gotta mention in season 2. Let me see, what is another bad point of season 2? Oh! Alright. The thing, okay. In regards to that love triangle, Clark and the way he deals with that, and Lana too, she's not exempt from this either, but pretty much, okay, season 2, the love triangle from season 1 with Clark, Lana, and Whitney, that kind of, dies out, but it still lingers on in season 2. And it was already kind of jarring enough as it was in season 1, what with Whitney's, which I completely forgot to mention this in my season 1 review, was Whitney's character arc, which was him dealing with his father's illness, his father passing away, and then finally him dealing with his aspects, his prospects after graduation, wanting to go on to play college ball, and then deciding to go ahead and enlist in the Marines. Well, that kind of lingers on in season 2, because once Whitney's overseas, you have Lana kind of on the fence about, whether or not she wants to break it off with Whitney, and whether or not she wants to be with Clark, and then Clark trying to, be sensitive to her needs, but then also selfish to his own at the same time. Yeah, the teen angst, they get riled up in season 2, and it doesn't work for me. It works for the series, it just doesn't work for me. So maybe this is but it's not just personal taste, because there are times where the shit doesn't work out as far as the way some of that's written in a few of these episodes. So it's not just my taste. And that kind of contributes to the bad points of season 2. But I will say, for the most part, the bad points of season 2 kind of end there. Okay. So, alright, let's move on to the main plot. So, the main plot of season 2, which kind of ties into the main theme of season 2, is pretty much, okay, where fuck it, let's just go into the theme. Let's go into the theme right now, and then I'll go ahead and discuss how that pertains to the main plot and then the subplots. Okay, so the theme for season 2 is, where do I come from? You all will remember I mentioned the theme for season 1 was, who am I? Now in season 2 we're addressing the theme of, where do I come from? And how does this pertain to the main plot, the subplots, and then the respective character arcs? Okay, for season 2, for the main plot as it pertains to Clark is now starting to discover his Kryptonian origin. Like, in season 1, he finds out that he's not from Earth. Well, in season 2, he finds out exactly where does he come from. And this happens through his introduction to Dr. Virgil Swan, who has been studying have been studying various evidence of Krypton on Earth. Pretty much, he's been deciphering cryptic messages, and he's been, searching in the stars for, activity. He's been studying the meteor shower and the origins of that, and that all led him to discover the message that was left on Earth for Clark. And this, once he discovers that, and then once he recognizes who Clark is, and learns about what's been going on in Smallville, he invites Clark to this fateful meeting where Clark learns these things. Clark also in season 2 discovers what were they? The Kawachi Caves, which is, a Native American cave that belonged to the Kawachi people. And he learns that there are a lot of stories in the Kawachi mythology that kind of reference or kind of pertain or link to his Kryptonian origin. One of the major figures in their mythology describes Clark almost to a T. And so Clark is trying to make sense of all this. And that's pretty much his main plot throughout season 2. Now let's talk about Lex, because okay, hang on a minute, because there's one more subplot that I want to mention about Clark and Lex, where they kind of, come together with this "where do I come from" bit. Okay, with Lex is trying to figure out in this season his journey about where do I come from kind of pertains to, this is the season when Lex is starting to break off and try to become his own man. He's weighed his options in season 1, and now in season 2 he's trying to do that. However, that's kind of come to a standstill after the events of the season 1 finale, where Lionel gets injured and he loses his sight. He becomes blind, and so now Lex is kind of stuck in this rut between, okay, I want to go off and do my own thing, but as my father's son, I kind of have an obligation to stand by his side. And so Lex is kind of at conflict with himself about that. And also, this is when we start seeing glimpses of Lex being haunted by the memory of his infant brother Julian. I think that's in season 2. I think in season 2 they start alluding to that, and then it comes forth full blown in season 3 when Lex has his psychological break. But I'll get into that next week with my season 3 review. Okay, so we start seeing that, and so now, as I mentioned briefly earlier, how does Lex and Clark's plots, how do they come together with that overarching theme of where do I come from? Here's where they come together. One of the subplots with Clark in season 2 is there's an episode, I believe it's called Lineage, and that is episode 11 of season 2, when a woman shows up in Smallville proclaiming to be Clark's mother. And so now Clark is trying to figure out, well, how is that possible? Because I know I'm not from Earth. And also, oh, yes, here it comes. Here it is. Also, Lex comes back into contact with the woman who used to care for him when he was a child, and who was fired by Lionel after his mother passed away. Because they're alluding to the fact that, Lex's mother was sick, and, she was depressed after his younger brother Julian died. And so we have these two women in both Clark and Lex's life, that claim to have been very close to them as children, and they disappeared. Now they're coming back into the fold. So now both Clark and Lex are trying to make sense about their origins, right? But then, man, you talk about getting a fastball. Lex learns that he has a younger brother named Lucas who comes back into the fold, and Lionel has pretty much taken Lucas under his wing as, okay, this is my prodigal son. And Lex is kind of, the outcast. He's kind of the disinherited one, if you will. And so Lex and Lucas, they do this plan to undermine Lionel, and kind of, it's great. It's great. I really liked how all these little subplots kind of came into the fold, and all pertain to the main theme as it, in regards to Clark and Lex respectively. And so now let's talk about the subplots as they pertain to the other characters. Lana's subplot in season 2, same thing. Where do I come from? Lana, researching more about her parents, actually finds out that the man she thought was her father is not her biological father. And so she reaches out and reaches out to and tries to connect with her biological father, only to have that door kind of closed in her face, if you will. So that's what Lana's main, that's what her subplot in regards to where do I come from, that's her thing. Okay, Pete has a very interesting subplot in season 2 because Pete finds Clark's spaceship and learns his secret. And so where Pete is not faced with the theme of where do I come from, but Pete becomes a very significant supporting character in regards to Clark, because whereas in season 1 the only people Clark had to rely on were his mom and dad in regards to his powers and his origins and all that jazz, well, in season 2 now he gets his best buddy Pete to kind of back him up in that. But what is interesting is that this is the season where their friendship somewhat gets tested for the first time, because now there's a major event. Pete has now a major role, more so in Clark's life than he ever had in the past. And so now them learning to trust one another, them kind of gauging these boundaries of, what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, where do we draw these lines, all of that's being laid out before Clark and Pete in season 2. And I really like that. I really dug that. Now let's talk about Chloe. Let's talk about Chloe. I'm not going to go into any more detail about the whole love triangle that I mentioned earlier. I will mention, however, I believe this is season 2. Okay, remember when I talked about those boundaries that Clark and Pete are trying to establish amongst themselves? Well, Clark and Chloe were forced to do the same thing, because in the episode Lineage that I mentioned, when Clark was trying to figure out who this woman was claiming to be his biological mother, Chloe crosses a line where she kind of dwells into Clark's background. She starts researching him, and so that conflict comes to a head between those two, and it creates a rift between them. But I also think that this was the season where we first heard about Chloe and her relationship to her mother. I believe this was season 2. I could be wrong about that. It could have been season 3. But I think this is when we get the first mention about like Chloe and her mom and what happened there, and why Chloe behaves the way she is, and how that event about her mom, it was because when Clark mentioned that he didn't want to find his parents, Chloe made the comment about, oh well, at least you have them because my mom abandoned me. This was the first time we heard about, whoa, my ring just flew off my finger, god damn it. Okay, there it is. Anyway, but yeah, this was the first time we heard about that. And so and we learned that Chloe kind of has abandonment issues, because that's how that's what she feels about her mother. We find out though that once again this is one of those fronts that Chloe puts on about not trying to make herself feel weak or feeble or inferior to her peers. She tries to keep that straight face, and yeah, that's one of those issues. All right, let's see. Martha and Jonathan, what's going on with them in season 2? I do believe, yes, season 2, Martha and Jonathan actually have a little conflict of their own, because Martha starts working for Lionel. He becomes she becomes his personal assistant, and they find out that Lionel has been secretly researching Clark, right? Which Lex has also been doing also, but both of them, Lex and Lionel, have been doing it behind Clark's back, but they've also been doing it behind each other's back. But anywho, and so Jonathan's not comfortable with Martha working for Lionel. He doesn't want any of the Luthors having anything to do with his family at all. But when they find out that Lionel's secretly been researching Clark, they decide to take the offensive and use Martha's position to try and get more information about what Lionel knows about Clark. What was somewhat of a thorn in their side, they decide to use to their advantage. And so that was really cool. Another thing that happens with them, though, is that now the financial trouble that I briefly mentioned that was occurring with the farm in season 1 kind of comes to the forefront in season 2. The pressures, the financial pressures of keeping the farm and running the farm, and the debt that the farm currently has. All of that pressure kind of builds up in season 2, and it comes full blown in the finale. But also, Martha and Jonathan try to have a kid. They try to have a kid of their own, and that happens. That whole thing kind of starts off that starts, I think, halfway through season 2, but then of course that thing, comes to a head by the finale also. Not to give away too much information about what happens there for those of y'all who haven't seen the series yet. But yeah, so all those things are going on with Martha and Jonathan in season 2. And so I think I've covered the main plot, I've covered the subplots, covered the theme. Yeah, so I think we've done it. One of my viewers mentioned that I didn't mention any of my favorite episodes and whatnot from the season 1 review. So that was my 20-minute marker. I'll take the last 5 minutes and just mention to you all a few of my favorite episodes from season 2. I will mention this though before I jump into the episodes. With the DVD box sets, what they usually do is they usually have about 3 to 4 episodes a disc. Season 2 was the first season where every episode on the disc I enjoyed. It was like I was blazing through season 2 because it's like I was marathoning the hell out of them episodes. Alright, so favorite episodes from season 2. Vortex, the season 2 premiere, I enjoyed. I thought it was really good. Season 2, episode 2, Heat, when Clark discovers his heat vision, and it's also a metaphor for puberty, and when Clark discovers that his heat vision activates whenever he's aroused. Love that episode. I fucking love that episode. It's hilarious. It's fucking hilarious. And the actress who plays Desiree, Krista Allen. Oh, she's so fucking hot. Let's see. Alright, Duplicity, the episode when Pete finds Clark's spaceship. I like that one. Red, episode 4, when Clark buys the class ring that has the red kryptonite, and it introduces what red kryptonite does to Clark, and he loses all his inhibitions. Fucking love that episode. Let me see, another one. Lineage, episode 7, I love that one. Episode 8, Ryan, the kid who can read people's minds, who first appeared in season 1. Ryan makes his return to the series in that episode, and I love that episode because I love the relationship between Clark and Ryan, because Ryan was pretty much a surrogate little brother to Clark, and I really love that episode. Alright, Skinwalker, the episode when Clark discovers the Kawatche Caves. Let me see. Suspect, the episode 13, when they thought that Jonathan was framed, there was an attempt on Lionel's life, and Jonathan was framed by Sheriff Ethan. Love that episode. Let me see. Rush, episode 14, when Pete and Chloe get affected by the mysterious bug creature that pretty much makes them into adrenaline junkies, and they do all this crazy extreme shit. I like that episode. Prodigal, episode 15, when Lucas, Lex's illegitimate brother, comes. Let me see. Oh, there's too many to list. There's too many to list. The theme, Green Ear Rod, Stumble. Okay. Witness, the episode with the guys who were using the kryptonite, like the kryptonite steroids, if you will. That's episode 20. I'm calling. Oh, I forgot to mention Helen, the doctor who's introduced in season 2, and the romantic relationship between her and Lex form in season 2, resulting in their wedding in the finale. I forgot to mention Helen. I like Helen. Helen is cool. And who's the actress that plays Helen? Because I really like that actress. I've always liked that actress. Shit. Can't find it. Why can't I find it? Oh yeah, the episode Fever, when Clark and Martha get sick, and they find out that the spaceship has the ability to heal them, and Helen was trusted with Clark's blood sample, and Lex winded up stealing it from her. I like that episode too. That's episode 16. Rosetta, episode 17, the one with Christopher Reeves. And then of course Exodus, the finale, when you know when everything that's been building up in season 2 kind of comes to a head. When Martha and Jonathan lose the baby, when there's the explosion at the Kent farm, when Clark decides to leave after he just hooked up with Lana, when Lex decides to go ahead and start his own company, when he buys out the Smallville sector of Luthor Corp and turns it into Lex Corp, all of that comes to a head in Exodus, the season 2 finale. Alright, so that's pretty much me mentioning. God, I'm so tired. Alright, so that wraps up my season 2 Smallville review. Like I said, I apologize for this review being so incoherent at times. Okay. So with that being said, I'm going to wrap this video up. I want to thank you all for joining me again this week. In the comments below, guys, let me know your thoughts on season 2 of Smallville. But also, guys, don't forget, let me know feedback on how I did in this review. I know this one was probably much worse than my last one. I apologize for that. Don't forget, pledge to my comic book miniseries Totems on Kickstarter.com. We have less than 11 days to raise as much money as possible. So, guys, feel free to do that. Oh, and guys, don't forget to leave your suggestions and vote for next week's discussion of the week and next week's Comic Book Hollywood. Do those in the comment sections of those respective videos. Don't forget to do that. And with that being said, this has been Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief. I'm signing off, and until next week, or I guess later this weekend when the new videos come out, peace.